That's an interesting question. However, I'm a person who has an investment program, an investment profile that I don't change based on today's conditions. I stick with what I do, regardless of what's happening around me. That may not be a good way to go, but that's what I do. I have my what I call my PDQ principles: patience, diversification, and quality investments. We all try to make quality investments, but that's in essence as simple as my program is. So I build it around quality investments, which in my case are mutual funds, more specifically index funds. That gives me the diversification that I feel like is necessary in any program. And then I exercise patience. So if I'm invested in a stock market situation that many consider overbought, I still follow my same approach. I tend to buy on a dollar cost averaging basis, and whether the market is overbought or oversold, I just keep investing regardless, assuming I have the money to be invested. And so in answer to your question, I think the first thing you have to do is develop an investment strategy. And if it works for you, if you find that over time it is working for you, stick with it. Don't worry about the fact that a market is overbought or oversold.
What's happening in the market right now to cause it to be considered overbought?
I think it's the news of the day. We've had recently 3 vaccines that are looking very good. And we're coming out of several months of a pandemic that just doesn't seem to go away, and probably won't on its own until we hit a herd situation. But in recent days and weeks, we've had certainly 2 vaccines that are looking really good, and a third one came out the last 2 days, which is also looking good. And that's good news to people because we're sick and tired of this pandemic, and I think right now we're beginning to see an end to it. Let's hope. And that has prompted a lot of people to feel a lot better about the market. Also, we've had a change in administrations, and whether you're a Trump man or a Biden man, there's a change in the air, and people are taking a certain amount of comfort from that. I don't think that's a good idea under hardly any circumstances. When you're in cash, well, that by definition means you're not in the marketplace. And if you're going to profit from being in the market, the number one thing you have to do is be there. You've got to be there. And if you're in cash, you're not there. It's sort of like gold. A lot of people love gold, and gold's not a bad place to be. But gold is not a productive asset. And cash in our today's environment is also not a very productive asset because the interest rates are virtually zero. So when you go to cash, 2 things are bad about that. You've left the marketplace, which has been very good. We've seen 18,000 this year, and we've seen 30,000 this year. And what if you were at 20 and it went down and you sold out, and you stayed out because you were frightened about what was going on, and now it's 30? I bet you're kicking yourself.
Definitely.
So cash is, I just don't think it's ever the place to be. If it's surplus to you, put it to work. The rules and regulations are set up such that you are discouraged from taking money out of a 401k. And that's a good thing, because if you can leave money in a 401k, you should do it, because that's your long-term reserve for retirement.
Right.
I would say, well, number one, a 529 account is a really, really good way to save for a child's education. But If you don't want to do that, there are other ways. Uh, One thing about putting money in a 401k, it has to be used for education purposes. So there are limitations on what you can do with that money.
You mean a
I
529?
mean, one of the things about a 529 is there are limitations on the use of that money, as there should be. It's designed to help people pay for their kids' college education. If you don't use it for those purposes, and there's a long list of things you can use for education purposes, but if you don't, there's a penalty associated with that. Some people simply don't like to have any rules on how they use their own money. In a manner of speaking, I'm one of those. Here's one thing you can do. If you have, for example, a number of mutual funds, let's say you set aside one of those mutual funds or a portion of one of those mutual funds, depending on how much money you want to set aside for education purposes. Set that money aside and use it for that purpose. Now, you have to be disciplined in order to do that, because a lot of people say, well, I'm going to use this kind of money for education purposes, and then as the days and weeks and months and years go by, they start using it for other purposes, so they defeat their own goals there. But just set aside, specifically maybe put it in your will. Set aside a mutual fund and say, this money will be used for my grandson or granddaughter or my son or my daughter's college education, and live by it. Other than that, I think you shouldn't. I don't think there's anything that can beat a 529 account. They're just really designed to do what they're designed to do, and they're very effective in doing that.